It's 42. I have sworn I forgot to do something. Oh, you're still here. Well, this is awkward. I suppose you want a longer answer, don't you? Well, the meaning of life isn't exactly a simple question to answer. So to go about even attempting to tackle this difficult subject, I will have to split it up into 3 smaller parts. So, Part 1. What is meaning? So, what is meaning? When you say that you want to have a meaningful life, what are you actually looking for? What do you actually want? If you think about it, nothing in the universe can have an objective meaning. How could it? It's just energy. Everything in the universe is just kind of energy swirling around in a big soup. It's like the ocean. What is the meaning of the ocean? It's a ridiculous question, right? In fact, even taken from a purely subjective standpoint, nothing in your life could possibly have ever meant anything. Not really. Because if you just look at the raw sensory input itself, it was just stuff happening. I mean, imagine if you dropped a camera out of a helicopter and then it just spun around on its way to the ground. It would just be a blurry mess, right? That is what pure, raw, unfiltered sensory input looks like. What is that? How do you work with that? You can't really do much with that in and of itself unless you impose a meaning onto it. And I know what you're probably thinking. When you hear a sentiment such as meaning is subjective, that nothing means anything other than the meaning you give it, there is probably a part of you that rejects that. A part of you that says that's wrong. Life must have meaning. And yes, it does. But you create that meaning. And I can prove it. Take the example of getting an F on a math test. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a number of things. On one hand, you might look at that F and think, oh my God, I'm stupid. I should have been able to figure that out. Why did I do so bad on this test? Oh my God, I'm worthless. Well, life is so hard. I'll never amount to anything. Or you'll think to yourself, oh God, that teacher was so unfair. I totally aced that test. Screw them. I don't like this class. I'm better than this. Or you might look at that F and think to yourself, I suppose I don't understand math as well as I think I do. Maybe I should study it more. You see? These are 3 totally different reactions that are all inspired by the exact same scenario. But fundamentally, getting an F on a math test doesn't mean anything. It's just ink on paper. That's it. That doesn't mean that I'm discrediting your search for meaning. Everyone wants to have a meaningful life. However, I believe that what most people get confused about is that when they say that they want a meaningful life, they already have one. The problem is that their life is one of suffering. That is the meaning they have attributed to their existence. So when you say you want a meaningful life, what you're really looking for is a way to stop suffering. And I have good news for you, because that path exists. However, there's a bit of a catch. To have a life free from suffering necessitates that you also have a goal to work towards. You must have a purpose that you structure your life around, which is far larger than you. As long as you have a goal to work towards, as long as you feel like you are contributing something to society and helping to make the lives of other people better in some way or another, then no matter what happens to you in life, you'll feel that it's worth it. All the struggles, all the pain, all the hardships are justified if the end goal is good enough. And I have good news for you. because there is a beautiful, universal goal that we are all directed towards, and no one is exempt from it. Part 2. The Divine Plan. At the beginning of this video, I made the joke that the meaning of life was 42, and that is a joke I borrowed from the Douglas Adams novel Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Here's the funny thing though. Although that joke was obviously intended as a play on the notion that life is meaningless, if you look at the number 42 as it's defined in numerology, there's actually a very, very interesting connection there. And honestly, I can't help but question whether or not this connection was intentional. So, what is that connection? According to numerology, the number 42 is all about being nurturing and idealistic, but also pragmatic. It's all about fostering communities and helping people to grow ever more connected with one another. And while I don't believe that life has a fundamental meaning, I believe that connecting with other people and growing ever closer to the people around you is the purpose of life. In fact, this is actually the root core of most Eastern philosophies. Buddhism has shades of this mixed into it. Hinduism does too. In fact, Alan Watts, a relatively modern philosopher, journeyed to the East and he translated many of these ideas into a framework that a Western audience could understand. And what he came back with was this root core idea that everything in the universe is all interconnected as the same whole, that you are the universe. You are the all. You are everything. But wait, there's more. It turns out that from 1968 to 2009, a hypnotherapist named Dolores Cannon did research on thousands of hypnotized patients. While Dolores Cannon was interviewing these people, she brought them into a deep state of trance, bypassing their egos as much as possible. She wanted to find out what they really thought. And then she simply interviewed them on deep philosophical questions like, what is the nature of existence? What is the meaning of life? Why did you incarnate at this time? Etc., etc. She asked them all kinds of questions. And remarkably, across the board, all of these countless people, even though they were total strangers with zero contact, when asked similar questions, they all replied with the same kinds of answers. These were Muslims and Jews and atheists and Christians, conservatives and liberals. It didn't matter who these people were, they always came back with the same answers. And that kind of consistency when it comes to cross-referencing, that just does not happen by coincidence. There is some kind of a deeper connection behind this. And I can't say for certain if this is evidence of a life after death or of alien contact or anything like that. But if nothing else, it proves that these kinds of ideas are archetypal. They are ingrained into the human psyche. But that's not all. It turns out that in 1986, 3 scholars named Carla Ruckert, Jim McCarty, and Don Elkins all worked together to compile a channeled work called the Raw Material. And yes, I know, channeling is one of those things that's kind of esoteric, kind of woo-woo. But bear with me here, because in spite of their methods, the information they ended up with lines up remarkably well with the information that Dolores Cannon compiled together. And keep in mind, Cannon cross-referenced her sources. On top of that, Carla, Don, and Jim were all physicists. And because they all had a comprehensive understanding of the way the universe functions, they were able to go so much more in depth with the same core ideas that Cannon brought through. Now, in this short video, I don't have a lot of time for all of that depth, but here is a brief run-through. Supposedly, during her work, Carla was channeling an extraterrestrial being named Ra, who was a refugee from the planet Venus. And pause, it already sounds kind of woo-woo. I know. But the core idea behind this channeled work was the same foundational idea that everything is connected. In fact, the idea wasn't just that we're all connected. The idea was that we are all different aspects of the same universal consciousness. And although I might get some flack for this, I personally believe that's true. Because after all, in a strictly physical sense, there's no clear distinction between where your physical body ends and the rest of your environment starts. There's an ongoing flow between the two, to the point that it doesn't even make sense to call it two different things. It's more similar to the crest of a wave in the ocean. You look at a wave as though it's a separate thing, but it's not. It's water, just like everything else around it. A wave is the ocean, in the same way that you are the universe. And because you are conscious, then why shouldn't everything else be conscious too? Now, it might not always be the same levels of consciousness, in the same way that the whole ocean isn't swelled up in a big wave. But it's still all the same thing regardless. That is the core foundational idea behind the law of one. And I believe it. Because Ra goes super in-depth with the concept. In fact, here is a little, admittedly sloppy chart I drew to help illustrate the point. According to Ra, we continuously progress from one level to the next, 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 all the way up to basically being God. And this process, even though Ra extends it over an evolutionary timescale, this process is mirrored in our own lives. Now, for anyone unfamiliar with the idea of chakras, the basic gist is this. You start at the root chakra, which is pure survival, just trying to not die. Then you move up the level to the sacral chakra, which is all about seeking out pleasure and avoiding pain. One step above that is the solar plexus. This level is defined by willpower and self-awareness. Beyond that is the heart, which is all about universal love and acceptance and appreciation of all life. Above that is the throat chakra, defined by authenticity, self-acceptance, and living your truth. You go a step above that, and you reach the third eye, which is where we begin to have intuitions and insights. And finally, at the very, very tippy top, at the top of your head, you have the crown chakra, which is where you begin to feel interconnected with anything and everything around you. And whether or not you personally believe that these chakras are actual physical pools of energy swirling throughout your body, it doesn't matter. Symbolically speaking, these different ways that we relate to ourselves and the world around us are very, very real. And you really do have to move from one to the next, to the next, to the next, up the scale like a ladder. You can't jump straight from the root chakra all the way to the crown. You gotta go through all the others. Because think about it. If you're stuck in pure survival mode, how could you possibly live authentically or love other people? You couldn't. If you're just trying to not die, then all you care about is not dying. But once you are safe and secure, then you can begin to pursue things that are enjoyable to you, things that you want in your life. And then once you have what you want, then you start to understand, hey, I want this. That's the third level. And then you begin to pursue, who am I and what is it that makes me who I am? Once you have a established sense of self, once you understand how you fit into the grand scheme of everything, then you can begin to relate to everything else in a positive way. And this is where universal love comes in, an appreciation of all life. You cannot love other people unless you first love yourself. You cannot give what you don't have. You have to fill up your own cup first to the point that it's overflowing. It's not enough for it to just be full. Your cup must be overflowing for there to also be enough for everyone else. You've got to be like the sun. Love should just radiate out of you in all directions for anyone who might come into contact with it. It can't be conditional, because then it's not real love, it's just pride. Conditional love is not love, it's just pride. And that is the lesson of the fourth level, which is only accessible once you've got the other three sorted out. You have to love yourself before you can love other people. You see how it's all connected? There's a very, very clear progression from one level to the next, to the next, to the next. And according to Rob, this is true on an evolutionary scale as well. However, to go in depth would probably be a discussion best saved for a future video. For now, the basic gist is that we begin our evolutionary journey as rocks and trees and gas clouds and basically things that just sit there and do nothing. And we go all the way up to essentially being gods. And along the way, we continuously explore more and more about ourselves and the nature of reality. That is the universal purpose, the expansion of consciousness, and by extension, the mastery of your own existence. And that brings us to Part 3. Soul contracts and life deals. So, I have established that the purpose of life is to expand your consciousness, learning everything you can about yourself and the world around you and other people and whatever you can, because knowledge is power. The more you know, the more mastery you have over your own existence. But how does that relate to you individually? Personally, I don't know. I'm just some guy on YouTube. But I do know that all of us, no matter who we are, all have our own unique struggles and challenges in life. And there's a reason for that. As much as you might think that it's all random and that there's no point to it all, everything in your life that you find difficult, everything you struggle with consistently over time is there for a reason. And you put it there. That is one of the ideas that came through in Dolores Cannon's channeling sessions. It's one of those archetypal concepts that everyone seems to agree on. Whether we realize it or not, we all want to believe that we are the masters of our own destiny. And this extends all the way back to before you were born. Before you even incarnated into this life to begin with, you laid out the specific kinds of lessons you wanted to learn or the specific goals you wanted to accomplish. And I don't know what that looks like for you, but I can tell you what it looks like for me. Now, I can't say for certain if there was any specific lesson I was supposed to learn in this life. I've spent years trying to figure that out. However, I do know that there was a goal I am meant to accomplish, and that's to help other people overcome their inner demons. Now, in my head, I had this idea of being an armchair psychologist, sitting back in a big padded comfy chair, taking notes and smoking a cigar, while I talked through my clients' issues one-on-one to help them overcome whatever it was that was bothering them. And I started down the road of studying for a psychology degree for that very reason. But the more I tried to pursue that path, the more it kept blowing up in my face. Because I refused to go into debt, I ended up taking a slow and steady route, taking only 2 classes per semester. And in order to afford these classes, I kept working one job after another, after another, after another that I hated just so I could afford the classes. And I felt like in these courses I wasn't even learning anything, and I just wasn't making any progress. It was frustrating. But after traveling down this road for years, I discovered that there are spiritual gurus on YouTube who specialize in helping people to overcome their demons. Lots of them, in fact. And if you had told me 2 years ago that I would be making these kinds of videos and posting them on YouTube, I would have thought you were nuts. But look at me now. You can live your dreams, and you can be the person that you want to be. However, the real lesson to be learned here is that even if you are following your heart, even if you are attempting to pursue what you know you are meant to do, it could be that your dreams might not manifest in the way you expect. Again, I did not expect in a million years that I would be making these kinds of videos, but they are exactly perfectly aligned with what I know I am meant to be doing. Now, I'm not saying that you have to make videos on YouTube. That might be your path, it might not. It is for me, but your calling might be something totally different. The point is that you will find your calling in life. You will discover what you were sent here to do in the first place by simply following what you are passionate about. Live your passion. It doesn't have to be some big overarching thing either. If you just want to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you feel like playing a song, like I did, chord right up there, then play a song. If you feel like dancing, then dance. If you want to go out for dinner, then go out for dinner. If you feel like, I would love doing this, then do it. It's not going to hurt anyone. The only real key here is that you must get out of your head and into your heart. That's where all the magic comes from. Do what you love. Do what you are passionate about. And the results will flow like a river. It's downright magical. As always, I wish you well, my friends. And may peace and love flow through you always.